Did you know that, on average, people have an attention span of only 8 seconds? That's shorter than a goldfish. In today's world, where everyone is bombarded with endless stories, only a few stand out. Here's a shocking fact: 80% of online content is ignored because it simply doesn't connect with people emotionally. If your story doesn't grab attention in seconds, your audience is gone. But here's the good news: becoming a great storyteller isn't about being perfect. It's about mastering certain strategies that make people care about what you have to say. In this video, we'll dive into proven storytelling techniques that can make your stories unforgettable. From using emotional hooks that create instant connection to crafting characters that feel like real people, we'll explore everything. You'll learn how to use surprise twists that keep listeners on the edge of their seat and discover why vulnerability is your superpower. Ready to make your stories stand out? Let's get started. Chapter 1: Unlocking the secret source of connection. Have you ever wondered why some stories stick with you long after you've heard them, while others fade away quickly? The secret lies in emotional connection. People care about stories when they feel something, whether it's joy, sadness, or even curiosity. A study by Paul J. Zak, a neuroeconomist, found that character-driven stories that evoke emotions lead to oxytocin release in the brain, which enhances empathy and connection. Simply put, when people feel connected to a story, they're more likely to care about it. So, how do you create that connection? Start by tapping into universal human experiences. Think of moments everyone can relate to, like the feeling of being an underdog or facing a personal fear. Instead of focusing only on facts or events, bring out the emotions tied to those experiences. Use phrases like, "remember when you," or "we've all felt," to immediately draw your audience in. People will see themselves in your story. Relatability is another key factor. The more your audience sees themselves in your narrative, the more invested they'll become. Best-selling author Brené Brown talks about the power of vulnerability in storytelling. In her research, she found that people connect more deeply when they sense honesty and openness. Being vulnerable means sharing your true emotions, whether it's fear, joy, or sadness, and letting your audience know that it's okay to feel that way too. Lastly, never underestimate the power of specificity. Generalized emotions might fall flat, but vivid details like "the knot in my stomach" or "the smell of rain as I waited nervously" create stronger, more lasting images. They evoke sensory responses that make your story unforgettable. Chapter 2: The Art of the Unexpected Twist. Predictable stories get boring. That's why one of the best storytelling strategies is to incorporate the unexpected. Our brains are wired to seek out novelty. Studies show that surprise activates the reward centers in our brain, making people pay more attention. Just think about how much we love plot twists in movies or books. According to the Nielsen report, 82% of readers say they are more likely to remember a story with an unexpected outcome. One way to introduce the unexpected is by playing with narrative pacing. You don't need a big plot twist every time. Sometimes, a small shift in pacing or tone can keep your audience on their toes. For instance, start by leading them to believe your story is going in one direction, and then surprise them by revealing a hidden detail or taking an unexpected turn. Keep your audience guessing. Another trick is to build anticipation through cliffhangers. Leave something unresolved, making your listeners crave the resolution. This is often used in TV shows, where they leave the story hanging just before a big reveal. Neuroscientist George Loewenstein calls this the curiosity gap. People feel compelled to close that gap once it's been opened. But remember, surprises aren't just about shock value. They need to serve the story. A well-placed twist adds depth and meaning to the narrative. For instance, in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, the revelation that Snape was actually protecting Harry all along transforms the entire story. It's not just a shock, it reshapes how we understand the characters and plot. Chapter 3: Creating characters that live and breathe. Characters are the heart of any good story. Think about your favorite book or movie. Chances are, it's the characters you remember most. You don't just watch them, you feel what they feel. Why? Because they seem real. A study from Princeton University showed that when people read about characters in a story, the same brain regions are activated as when they experience emotions themselves. To make your characters come alive, you have to dig deeper than just their appearance or actions. Start by giving them flaws. Perfect characters are not relatable. It's their imperfections that make them human. Look at Iron Man. He's brilliant but arrogant, and it's this flaw that makes him compelling. Flaws make characters vulnerable, and vulnerability is the gateway to empathy. One unique technique is to imagine your characters in everyday situations outside of the story. How do they react when stuck in traffic? What's their go-to comfort food? These small, quirky details help shape characters who feel real and relatable. They give your audience something to latch onto, even in a complex plot. Dialogue is another critical element. Good dialogue doesn't just push the plot forward, it reveals character. Pay attention to how people actually talk. Real conversations are messy, they're full of interruptions, emotions, and inconsistencies. Let your characters speak in a way that reflects their personalities. For example, a nervous character might ramble, while a confident one speaks in short, decisive sentences. Lastly, make sure your characters grow. A good story shows transformation. Maybe your character starts as timid and ends up brave. Maybe they learn a hard truth about themselves. This journey is what hooks your audience. According to literary expert Christopher Booker, all great stories are about some form of transformation, whether it's physical, emotional, or psychological. Enjoying these tips so far? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on more storytelling insights. Now, let's dive deeper. Chapter 4, The Magic of Imagery and Sensory Detail. Think back to a time when a story made you feel like you were right there with the characters. You could hear the rain, smell the fresh coffee, or feel the warmth of the sun on your skin. That's the magic of sensory detail. Studies show that sensory-rich language lights up different parts of the brain, making the story more memorable. It activates not just the language center, but areas linked to smell, taste, and touch. In fact, one study from Emory University found that reading words describing texture can activate the sensory cortex, making stories more immersive. When telling your story, don't just say, "It was cold." Say, "The wind cut through my jacket, chilling me to the bone." You want your audience to feel what you felt. And it's not just about creating a vivid picture. Sensory details help your audience connect emotionally. They engage multiple senses at once, pulling people deeper into the experience. Be specific. The smell of freshly baked bread conjures a clearer image than simply saying, "It smelled good." And don't be afraid to use metaphors or comparisons to heighten sensory experiences. For example, instead of saying, "The room was bright," you might say, "The sunlight streamed in," as if someone had thrown open a curtain on a stage. These little touches can turn ordinary moments into something much more vivid. Mark Twain once said, "The difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug." That's especially true when describing sensory experiences. The right word can make a world come alive. Chapter 5, Structuring Your Story for Maximum Impact. Even the most amazing story can fall flat without the right structure. How you organize your story is key to keeping your audience hooked from start to finish. One of the most popular and effective frameworks is the 3-act structure. In this setup, Act 1 introduces the characters and sets up the problem. Act 2 complicates things and builds tension. Act 3 brings everything to a head with a resolution. This structure is successful because it mirrors the way people naturally process stories. We crave a beginning, middle, and end. Screenwriter Sid Field, who popularized this model, says that the midpoint in Act 2 is often a game changer, where something significant happens that alters the course of the story. This keeps audiences engaged by creating rising tension. If you want to go deeper, consider the hero's journey, a storytelling template made famous by Joseph Campbell. It's a 12-step structure that many of the world's best-known stories follow, from Star Wars to The Lion King. In this journey, the hero leaves their comfort zone, faces challenges, and returns transformed. It's so effective because it taps into universal themes of growth and transformation. For those looking for more flexibility, the in medias res technique might be worth trying. This strategy throws your audience directly into the middle of the action, then fills in the backstory later. This is perfect for keeping your viewers on the edge of their seat, wondering how the characters ended up in such a dramatic situation. But whatever structure you choose, always remember pacing. You need to give your audience time to breathe. Too much action without a pause can be overwhelming, while too little can make things drag. A good rule of thumb is to balance moments of high tension with quieter, more reflective scenes. If you found these insights helpful, make sure to subscribe to stay updated on more tips and tricks for mastering storytelling. Your next great story is just one strategy away.